maybe we'll go a little smoother now. So, John, I see you've joined us. If you can't hear, please let us know. We'll try to remedy that, but otherwise we'll assume you can hear us talking in the room and see our screen. There we go. Did that fix that? Okay. There we go. Okay. So we're here to talk about Cato Road. So thanks for coming. And we'll talk about the what our 3 E's of traffic calming are: education, enforcement, and engineering. Those 3 things work together to really achieve slower vehicle speeds. But this program specifically addresses the engineering of the streets. So that's what we're targeting and we'll be talking about. Traffic calming, what is it? We address residential streets. So we're not installing these types of physical solutions on, say, Clarksville Pike or anything like that. This is specific for residential streets. And our goals are to reduce speeding on residential streets and encourage that those low speeds over significant lengths. So we use our tools to try to achieve those things. So we look at a street by street basis and implement those devices to reduce speeds and increase safety. So we're focused on those primary goals. And you know, we do have limited resources, and that's why we focus on a street by street basis based on a data-driven metrics to identify which streets should receive traffic calming. So there's the Hub Nashville. Are you all familiar with Hub Nashville and how to access services and maintenance issues through Hub Nashville? So just go to hub.nashville.gov and it disseminates your request to the correct department. So it maybe needs to go to NES, street lights, or signs are down, or street light is out, traffic signals not working correctly, things like that. Also, you know, request for new signage or something like that would go through there. So this program, this street program, is really in high demand here in Nashville. We, in our last round of applications that were accepted, which this street was selected as one of them, we had application for 426 residential streets in Nashville, Davidson County. So it's quite a large demand based on funding that's been allocated from Metro Council and NDOT's allocation of that funds. We're selecting 24 neighborhood streets per 6 months. So we're basically doing 50 streets or 50 neighborhood projects per year. So Cato Road was one of those 24 projects that was selected and announced in July 1st. So how did we select Cato Road and how do we select those 24 out of 426? We have a data-driven prioritization process that we take the applications, the requests that have been made, and look at speed. We look at safety, crash history. We look at active transportation, availability, and neighborhood destinations. So then we put those criteria to this this weighted scale. So 50% of the score, it's out of 100, 50% of the score is based on the speed difference between what we measured on the street and what the posted speed limit is. Then 20% is based on crash history. We look back at 5 years of crash history on the street and also base that on the traffic volume. So we look at crash rates. And then 15% each is on the active transportation and neighborhood destinations. So active transportation are there bus stops, bus routes on the street, bike lanes, presence of sidewalks or lack of sidewalks gets scoring in there. And then neighborhood destinations, schools, parks, greenways, things that places that we would expect people to be walking from the neighborhood, from the residential street to those destinations. But we're really focused on safety. 70% we think this prioritization is really based on safety because we're focused on speeding and the crash history. So Cato Road, some data about Cato Road specifically and how this street was selected. The 85th percentile speed we measured was 42 miles per hour on Cato Road on this section that was requested between Ashland City Highway and Gilmore Crossing Lane. So the 85th percentile speed is the speed that when we measured the data for a 24-hour period, 85% of the cars are going that speed or below. Then 15% is going above 41 miles per hour. But the posted speed limit is 25, so it's a big differential there. Then the daily volume was measured at 2,500 vehicles per day, approximately, and that's the total of both directions of travel. And then just looking at the street width's about 21 feet. We've got white edge lines. We've got the double yellow lines in the middle. So you've got about almost 11-foot lanes, 10.5-foot lanes. And then there's not any sidewalks on this street. Here's a map of our street that we're looking at. So it's between kind of almost to the Barley, pretty much the Barley Parkway overpass, and then down to Ashland City Highway. Of what road looks like. As I said, no sidewalks, no curb and gutter, just more of a rural type cross section there with lane line striping. So let's talk about what's in our toolbox to address that speeding on Cato Road. Our first tool that we use quite a bit are speed cushions. These are vertical devices that are arranged based on the width of the street, the pavement markings on the street, but basically they're rubberized devices, and we can form different arrangements depending on what the street characteristics are. But these pictures show on the left an arrangement of 3 cushions in the pavement width, and then the one on the right is of a set of 2 cushions, just 1 in each lane. So it just depends on how wide the street is, what we do there. These devices are signed typically with some warning signage to alert drivers of the device. Oftentimes it'll be paired with a advisory speed plaque. It would say about 20 miles per hour. They're painted, as you can see, so they have some retro reflectivity at night, so they can be seen at night. These devices, specifically the speed cushions, are great because they don't impact emergency vehicles as much as if they were going all the way across the road. So that's why you see the gaps, because those allow those wider vehicle wheelbases to hit just the edges of it. But they are 6 feet wide. Yes, 6 feet wide and 7 feet long, typically. We also do them in longer arrangements that on faster streets. And so I'll move on to the next picture. Here's a kind of another view of a different type of arrangement on the left. That's where we have 3, and these are 10.5-foot long ones. So depending on the striping, you know, we can put the center line striping on them. And then this profile view on the side shows kind of how long they are and how high they are. They are at their max, they're 3 inches high. So they ramp up to 3 inches and then back down. And they're comfortably driven at somewhere between 15 to 20 miles per hour. Then another thing about speed cushions, I'll go back, is we have criteria that we look at in terms of like distance from driveways. We don't want to place them right at the back of someone's driveway, so we look at things like that. We place them in series, so somewhere between around 500 feet apart, so that drivers see the next set as they're approaching, so they understand they're not going to speed up between, because they're still going to have to slow down to travel over the next set. So we will put these in series at about 500-foot spacing, typically. Other things that we have to look at when we're looking at vertical devices is the grade of the street. So we can't put them on steep grades, as you can imagine. That wouldn't work. All right, other tools in our toolbox are signs and markings. The picture on the left is a radar feedback sign to flash at drivers when they are going over the posted speed limit. It will flash to slow down. They are the ones we typically use are solar powered, as you see in that picture. Then markings. This picture is showing some zigzag markings just to alert drivers of something coming up in the roadway. In this case, it is a crosswalk to slow down in advance of the crosswalk. Just a unique way to do some pavement striping. Roadway narrowing. This is not applicable to Cato Road, of course, but it's something that we do to narrow the width and constrain the drivers to get them to slow some. Then speed tables, these are made of the same rubberized materials as the speed cushions, but they go the full length of the street. They're typically longer, as you see in this profile view. This one is 14 feet long. And they're a little bit more gradual than the 7-foot or 10.5-foot cushions that we used. But again, they have the markings, come with signage. These we typically use on streets with higher volumes or fast speeds. Then intersection treatment is a traffic circle. We've used these and have these in our toolbox. They are typically, they can be rubberized, but these are concrete, but they're built in the middle, in the center of a four-legged intersection, and requires drivers to have horizontal curvature as they go through the intersection. So that causes them to slow down to navigate through the intersection. Chicanes, another one that's not applicable to Cato Road, but we can kind of modify the street with doing bump outs or with on-street parking to create kind of a serpentine street and add some curvature to a straight street. So let's talk about this whole process. So this is an application process. You applied for traffic calming, and through that process, the NDOT went through the prioritization process. So this was a request from within the neighborhood from people that live on the street. And then through the prioritization process, we collect traffic data and compare it to all the requests that we have for traffic calming and select those that rank in the top around 25 in that round. So again, we typically select 25 every 6 months or so 50 a year. So through the prioritization and selection, we start working on conceptual designs for streets, and then we have this first meeting. So that's where we are now, is having this first meeting. We're here to tell you about the program, because some people that live on the street may have received their flyer or their postcard about the meeting and didn't know anything about traffic calming or the request. So we want to get that information out, and we do that through these meetings, and NDOT advertises the meetings through the postcards. So we give this overview of the program, and then and talk about our toolbox like we've already done, and we can also talk about a concept that we've prepared and looked at for the street. So from here, we would take the feedback that we received during this meeting and make any tweaks to our concept for Cato Road, go back and finalize that design based on what we hear at this meeting, and then we would be ready to have our second meeting. We would advertise that the same way with the postcards. We'd work with the neighborhood representatives to set up that meeting and do it again to give the residents enough time and opportunity to hear about the project. Then we would move into the online balloting phase. So that is that's new this round of selection. We used to do a petition, so now we're we are doing an online ballot. So you'd get a third postcard with a QR code access to vote on the plan. So that QR code would also give access to view the plans, and then to the online ballot to vote on it. So that ballot is open for a 6-week window. So we have a start and end time, so we know it's supported by the neighborhood or it's not supported by the neighborhood. But if it is, then we move into the construction, which would be ordering materials and getting them installed on the street. The online ballot requires a favorable vote of 66% of those that vote in the ballot. I have another slide about that too. We'll get into. So, are there any questions about the program or where we're at, or we're going to talk about the, yes.
Would the school vote in that? I mean, does the school have any say?
It doesn't. It is only, that's a great question. The question, if you're joining us online, the question is, does the school vote for the project? No, the voting is only for property owners along the affected street that are residential property owners.
Okay.
So, and that means, you know, if there's a rental property on the street, that ballot vote card would go to the property owner's address, wherever that may be. And they would get access to vote. Are there any questions on the chat box? No? All right, seeing none, let's talk about the concept that we've looked at. So this, to orient you first, north is to the right of the screen, and Ashland City Highway is to the left, and Briley is at the top of the screen there. But what we are recommending is a series of speed cushions along Cato Road, and it's 6 sets. They're spaced around 600 to 650 feet apart. So these come with the speed cushion warning signs at each location, and we recommend the 10.5-foot length cushions. They're a little bit longer, a little bit more comfortable than the shorter 7-foot ones. So we've spaced them, one right before you get to the school, one a little bit right after the school, and then in increments as you go up all the way to pretty close to the Gilmore crossing lane. And based on the width of the street, I'm recommending just one in each lane, like we saw in one of those pictures. So that's about it. So any questions about the plan? Do we like the vertical measures? Any questions on the chat? Or if you are joining us online and have anything to say, I think we can hear you if you want to say anything. All right, we can come back to this if anybody comes up with any questions they want, but or have. Let's talk about balloting. This would happen not now, but after our second meeting. So what we would do is take into some measurements of, you know, exact thing of those. We've already done some sizes and the grade rate and everything to put these types of devices there. So, but we would get more detail on the plan and come back and have a meeting with you all. Then the balloting would happen after that, as long as that's everything. We're still in favor of the plan. Again, 66% majority of partners that respond to the ballot, which is a change from our old petition ways of selections passed, which required wet signatures. So it was kind of a door-to-door effort that was carried out by the neighbors, the neighborhood, and that just became a real challenge for some neighborhoods, and some neighborhoods that didn't have or had some or get a hold of, it became hard to hit those goals. So now it's based on the people that the property owners that respond to the ballot, all the properties that residential properties that abut the street between. We will send these ballot cards out, just like the card that you got about this meeting. It'll be similar with QR code, a unique ID, so that we don't have to double voting and things like that. So that'll be at the bottom of the card. You'll input that unique ID. That'll be associated with your address. And then at the end of the 6-week period, we will let you know what the result of the vote is. I'll say the balloting and the vote are for vertical and measures that are something that's called in the street in the road. So if we to do just the radar feedback, something like that, that does not necessarily require a ballot vote. But you want to make sure that neighborhood support, the people that live on the street support the project and want to see it move forward. So with the ballot, a property owner can vote yes or no in favor. Having traffic calming or appropriate for traffic calming, so we want to move forward with that. Get something here. Okay, and then here's our zone. Can y'all see that on the screen? It's kind of hard. It's faded out a little bit on this screen here. Oh yeah. Oh, did I stop sharing it? Okay.
Yeah.
Are we back? Sorry about that. Okay, so again, yeah, we have about 31 properties. Then those those properties abut the street. It does show the school's property highlighted, but that's just we would remove that one. And at the bottom here of the map, just Metro's maps are already showing those the townhomes at the end of the street that are under construction, but those at this time they're not inhabited. They're not homes that are owned individually, so those would not be included in our vote. So I have included here contact information for Gil Thomas, who's the traffic calming program manager. His contact information is actually on the ballot card. So if the ballot card goes to someone who's unable to access the internet or vote online, his phone number is on that card. So they would be able to give him a call and he will guide them through that process. They'll just have their unique ID there. So we have ways to accommodate people who can't access the online ballot. Are there any questions? No? All right, well, that was kind of easy. Good. Well, what we'll do again is we'll prepare for our second meeting. We'll advertise it similarly. Please, tell your neighbors to participate, to join either online or in person when we have that. And they can also access this sometime after this evening. It'll be on this meeting will be on Metro's YouTube channel. You can just find it through the date of the meeting. And then we'll reach out to you person and get that second meeting scheduled. We'll be in touch. Then we'll move right along into the next phase. Okay.
I think the majority of our neighbors up there are mostly older. So. Probably why we didn't get a lot of response. I know that there's some neighbors on the other side of Briley that are pretty active.
Mm-hmm.
And I know our direct neighbors. So,
Great.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, that and then when the ballot goes out, you're, be sure to let your neighbors know to look for the card and be voting, but hopefully they'll be looking for it and get that done. All right. Well, I won't take any more of your evening. We'll close the meeting and
If it gets voted through, how long does it typically take to actually install this?
yeah, that's a great question. So, question in the room was, how long does it take to install after the if a favorable vote is received? So it takes about 4 months to get installed. It takes us about 2 months to get the materials ordered. We don't keep them, NDOT doesn't keep them in-house because we're installing these all the time, and we don't want to order materials that we don't need. So we order those materials after the vote is finalized, and if we have a favorable vote, and then it takes about 2 months to get that kind of organized with the contractor to get it installed. And then the construction of a project like this, how long does that length of time take? Just from when they start to finish, that may take 1 to 2 weeks. Weather dependent, they can't work when it's icy or things like that, or raining, but that's about it. And we work with the sign shop and all of that and the contractor to get the materials installed, but it goes pretty fast. Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll wrap up. Thank you for joining us online, and if you have any questions, you have my contact information. Let's see if I can. See.